How can I get into politics? Well, if you've ever asked yourself that question, you are in the right place. We're going to do a deep dive into that subject, and you're going to get a better answer here than you will anywhere else. What we're going to cover in the first half of this video are 4 tried and true ways to get involved in politics. And then we're going to talk about what you do once you have your foot in the door. Item number 1, volunteer for a political campaign. That is a tried and true way to get involved in the politics, and it is the route that most people have taken who have become politically active. Now, what do you do when you volunteer in a political campaign? Well, of course, there are certain basic things that all have to be done at the headquarters. You can help answer the phone. You can help organize phone banks. You can work with other volunteers to complete a task. I've seen people assigned to emptying the wastebaskets, keeping the refrigerator stocked with cold drinks, and taking care of tasks assigned to them by senior employees in a campaign. But that's not all. Candidates need to be staffed. So sometimes people who volunteer for campaigns travel with the candidate. They drive them to their destination for appointments. They help organize press conferences. They help organize town hall meetings. They keep the candidate moving and on schedule, make sure they're always properly coiffed, and that they do a good job when they're speaking in public. There are also other tasks that take place outside of the headquarters. Volunteers go door to door. They knock on doors. They do lit drops at shopping centers. They put up yard signs. All of these tasks are generally performed by volunteers in a campaign. If you go that route, you will always have something to do in a competitive political campaign. The second way is to get involved in a cause-driven organization. Now, what is a cause-driven organization? It's a group of people in your community who have banded together to try and make a change in public policy or change a law or to make something happen. It could be a social justice group. It could be a civil rights group. It could be an environmental organization. It could be those who believe there's too much development going on, or people who want to change in zoning. It could be people who want more affordable housing in a community. Now, where do you find a cause-driven organization to get involved with? It's pretty doggone easy. Go to Google and say cause-driven organizations and put the name of your city or county or jurisdiction. ChatGPT can also give you a pretty good idea of cause-driven organizations in your community. But it is a tried and true way. Get involved in one of those organizations and lead the charge to make a change in public policy where you're influencing politicians. It is a route to power in public life. Third way, get involved in a civic and community organization. What are those? Habitat for Humanity, United Way, the Salvation Army, the March of Dimes, the Kiwanis Club, the Lions Club, the Rotary Club, the Chamber of Commerce. Now, the reason you do that is because inevitably as you volunteer and get involved in these organizations, you are going to meet influential people in your community and people that we call opinion leaders. They, in turn, are people who deal with politicians in your community because a lot of these organizations depend in part on public funding, and others are organizations where politicians tend to show up for meetings because they are also meeting influential people when they attend the meetings. That is the third route to getting involved in politics. Item number 4, join a political party organization. What would you do if you do that? Well, you would circulate petitions to help candidates of that party get on the ballot. You would organize rallies. You would staff fundraising events. You would be on call as a volunteer when a particular candidate of that party needs a little help in their campaign. It is a tried and true way that people have become involved in politics because they start as a volunteer, they eventually become leaders in the party and power brokers. By the way, if you've ever thought of running for office, I have a free gift for you. It's called 12 Essential Steps to Prepare for a Political Campaign. Click the link below this video and get your copy. So to summarize, those are the 4 ways of getting involved in politics. Volunteer for a political campaign, get involved with a cause-driven organization, get involved with a civic and community organization, and volunteer to work for a political party. If you were to talk to people across the land who are today involved in politics, 99% of them got into politics using one of those 4 methods. Now, let's turn to the fun part of this video. It's what you do when you get in the door. Number 1 is make sure that when you show up to help, that you look like someone who is worth talking to. That means don't dress like a ragamuffin. Dress up. Make sure you're well shaved. Make sure you're pretty well coiffed. Wear nice looking clothes. Be presentable, because there is just an assumption about the way people look. People who volunteer look like a slob, they'll be considered a slob. So put your best foot forward. Watch your demeanor. That means do not complain when you're asked to do a task that you find menial. Smile. If you see someone who is struggling with the task, be the first to volunteer to help them get it done. When you have volunteered for a task, don't just be on time, be early. And if need be perfectly willing to stay late. Make that a habit and always keep your word. I want to talk about one story here that actually made a big difference in my career. I started as a volunteer in a political campaign and once noticed that the candidate seemed to struggle a bit when he was giving his speeches. So I decided to take some initiative. One night I went to my typewriter and I typed a speech for him that I'd kind of put together that helped him with his words. And I stayed late to get it done. I slipped into his office at headquarters and put it on the desk, knowing that he would see it the next morning when he came in to make his calls. Well, the next morning I was there early and the candidate arrived about 10 minutes after I did, and he saw that speech on his desk and he came out of his office waving that speech in the air and said, "Who did this? Who did this speech?" And he went up and down the hallway and through the other rooms asking campaign staff who had written that. And I finally owned up to it because I was the last one he was suspecting had done it. And I said, "Yes, sir, I did. I noticed that you were struggling a bit, so I wrote you a speech." And he said, "Thank you. I have been waiting on someone to notice that I needed help with that. From this point forward, I want you in the car with me because I want you by my side constantly to make sure that I'm doing a good job with my words." Wasn't very long after that, that intern, volunteer, was put on the campaign payroll. It wasn't very long after that, that he became a consultant himself, writing speeches for candidates. Yes, that was my story. That was my route into politics. It can be your route as well if you show a little initiative in the position that you've been given. There is a second thing that you work really hard on once you have your foot in the door. Make friends and work even harder to keep friends. You're meeting people who are also interested in politics, or you wouldn't be seeing them. You're going to meet people who have great talent. You're going to meet people who have great organizing skills. You're going to meet people who don't think like you, but might be great policy experts to advise you someday. The key is not just to make the friendship, but to find a way to keep in touch with the friends that you do make as you go through life. Now, you're going to encounter really smart people, talented people. Keep their names in your contact list. In every few months after you've parted the campaign and that project is over, make it a point to reach out to them once or twice a year just to check in, just to chat, just to see how they are. That is how you keep those friendships alive over the course of your journey through life. So if the day ever comes when you decide that you want to run for office yourself, you have a contact list full of warm friendships, of people that you can tap to help you get your campaign off the ground. I mentioned that volunteering for a campaign was perhaps the best route to getting involved in politics. So, while this information is fresh, I'm going to suggest you watch another video right below the screen. You click on the link. It is How to Volunteer for a Political Campaign. Grab a pen, grab a pencil, take notes, and go watch it now.